Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and today I have my September wrap up for you guys, which I honestly felt like I didn't do a very good job reading this month. I struggled with some of the books, and they took me longer to read than I planned on, but I actually ended up knocking it out of the park. I did end up reading 21 books, and when I broke down the page count, it was a really high number, which made me very happy because I didn't get all the books I wanted to read by any means. And so, physically read, I read 6,456 pages. And then, if I include the audiobook page number of just a regular hardback, it actually equals 7,304 pages, including the audiobook, which that one was 25 hours and I think 52 minutes. So, that one was a long one. It was the Priory of the Orange Tree. And yeah, so just a fantastic reading month, even though it didn't feel like it to me. And there's still two books I'm working on. There's a couple days left in the month when I'm filming this. And so they might spill over a little bit into the beginning of October, but just this first weekend if we don't finish. Because one, I'm reading with my husband. We're in the final third of the book. And so we might need to finish it like Saturday, which is the first, but I'm pretty confident that we will, and we're the bulk of the way through. And the other one is the one I actually opened to read on my birthday and then ended up setting aside because it was a classic and it was a little bit more brain power than I wanted to use on my birthday. I just kind of wanted to veg and just purely enjoy the book, not have to really think about it. And so that one I'm actually planning on reading these last couple days. I got about 65 pages in, and it's just shy of 400. So again, I can probably finish it in a day, but I might not be able to because it is a little bit denser. And so if I don't, I'll definitely finish it this weekend. So I'm going to count that one for September as well. So let me go ahead and jump right in. I did do a mid-month wrap up, so if you haven't seen that, go check that out. So I'm going to fly through those books real quick, and then I'll get into the books that I did not talk about in the wrap up. So first up, I have the children's books I read. And so the first one is The True Stories of the Three Little Pigs by John Scieszka and illustrated by Lane Smith. So this is a picture book, and it's one I had before, and I needed a little bit more um, to spend a little bit more in order to get free shipping. I was ordering from thrift books, and so I put this one on because it was either pay for shipping or pay for another book that's about the same price. I can get free shipping, and so I opted for another book, and this was it because I had it previously. I remembered how cute it was, and so I grabbed that one. And then I did the three Winnie the Pooh books. I had already read Winnie the Pooh, and I decided I wanted to order these ones. These weren't originally on my TBR, but I couldn't not read them when I got them. So we have The House at Pooh Corner, When We Were Very Young, and Now We Are Six. These are all the full color gift editions, and this is by A. Milne and illustrated by Ernest H. Shepard. So I read those three this month. And then I read Matilda by Roald Dahl. I had never read Matilda. I love the movie. Really, was a repeat watch for me growing up. Constantly watched it, and so I was really glad I was able to read the book. Really enjoyed that. Then, while I was at my mom's, I read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This was my first year Sarah J. Maas, and it didn't really wow me. Probably not going to continue on the series. I did get this one at a thrift store, so if I come across the next one at the thrift store, I might pick it up, but I'm not going to be searching out to pick it up or anything like that. And then I read Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is the second one in the Lunar Chronicles, and didn't enjoy this quite as much as the first one, but still really enjoyed it. Then we have the book I ended up reading on my birthday, Daughter of the Pirate King, and then we also have Daughter of the Siren Queen by Tricia Levenseller. This was just such a fun time. Really enjoyed those. And then I read for my ABC Author Challenge, I have The Orchid House by Lucinda Riley. This one was kind of a historical fiction type. Lots of twists in it though, and overall enjoyed it. But again, if you want to know more about that, check out my ABC author video. And then I also read my S author. I read Nevermore by Harold Schechter. This one was very weird. I still don't know quite how I feel about it, because there was things I enjoyed about it, but it was weird, and I didn't like the main narrator of the story. So, but yeah, read this as well. And then I also talked about the Priory of the Orange Tree, which I listened via audiobook as I was driving up to my mom's and back, and then I just kind of finished it off here and there when I could. So I did read that one as well, or listen to it rather. And that one, it was hard because I listened to an audiobook, which is not my preferred method of listening to story. Like, I don't like listening to stories unless it's nonfiction. I do better with nonfiction audio. Um, and I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed it more physically, just because it did, there's a lot going on. So, but that's the other one. And so now we'll go ahead and get into the books that I've read since then, which has only been this past week, which I did pretty good this past week. So first we have my ABC author books. And actually this is the one I read first. I read Haunt Me Still by Jennifer Lee Carroll, or Carl. And this one is kind of Shakespeare inspired, based on Macbeth. Um, the main character, I forget her name already, but she's been hired to try to find there's supposedly this lost manuscript of Macbeth, and so she's hired to try to find it and then produce the play for um, this lady. But of course, there's other more sinister things going on. This one, a lot of it went over my head. I did really enjoy this. I think I gave this one 4 stars. A lot of it did go over my head just because I'm not big on Shakespeare. Like, I know a lot of the stories, but I haven't read a whole lot of Shakespeare. So a lot of it went over my head, but I did really, really enjoy it overall. And I think I would have enjoyed it more if I had been more familiar with the references for sure. But the writing was really well done. I did see some like reviews on this that some people felt it was pretty slow pace, which I didn't. Like, I mean, I see where they're coming from, but I thought the pace was just fine. Um, and yeah, I found it pretty interesting. So that's the first one I read. And then the other one from my 25 Days of Bookmas is A Rebel Heart by Beth White. This is book 1 in the Daughtry House series. And this one, I just had like these books that I read, like they were like Nevermore was Edgar Allan Poe and Davy Crockett teaming up to solve some murders. And this one you had a Pinkerton detective. And so this one it's after the Civil War, and Sella Daughtry, along with her sisters and her cousin, are really struggling and they're at risk of losing their plantation house. And so then you have Levi, and he's the Pinkerton detective, and he ends up coming in and he convinces her to turn her house into a hotel, and that will save her house and then allow her to make money, and renovate it and get it back up to standards. But there's kind of a secret. And I will say the thing about this one is you as a reader, she lets you in on all the mystery of the book, right off the bat, but the characters don't know what's going on. Um, but you do. So, and it's like a Christian historical fiction, but there's, like I said, kind of that detective element there too, with Levi being a Pinkerton detective. But I I wasn't sure about my thoughts on the Pinkerton part of it, but by the end of it, I really enjoyed everything about the book. I definitely see myself finding the rest of the series and continue to read on. I really, really enjoyed the characters in this, and I like that old time feel and everything like that. So, um, yeah, really, really, really enjoyed that one. Then let's see here. These books are sliding. I read my Nora Roberts books that I had picked out. I chose the Three Sisters Island trilogy, just because I remember the first one, which is Dance Upon the Air. Um, I remember it had like autumn vibes, and it actually starts in summer, but the end of the book is in autumn, and there's this bookstore with a cafe, and it just has the perfect vibes. And then Heaven and Earth is in winter, and then Face of Fire is back in summer. And so, even though all the seasons don't really match up, the vibes do because it's very witchy. So basically, originally the Three Sisters Islands, the legend goes that it was created, these three sisters who are witches, um, during the Salem witch trials, they broke off a piece of Massachusetts and made a home of it where they could be safe and not persecuted. And so that's where this island comes from, the legend says. And then you have the three main characters are actually descended from those sisters, and they're having to face these different trials and make these choices. Otherwise, the island is going to basically fall into the sea. And it's not truly a curse, but it is in a sense. And there's this dark that is trying to make them fail essentially. And yeah, really really enjoy this. There's a little bit of elemental magic. You have air, you have earth, and then a fire. And then Mia's love interest, he represents the water element, and that kind of ties back into the legend of the original three sisters as well. So very witchy, and I like it. Was the perfect trilogy to kind of transition from summer to autumn because it's not full, doesn't take place fully in autumn. There's just kind of that vibe there. Enjoyed these just as much as I have in the past. Definitely 4-star reads for me. And yeah, really had fun with those three. And then my new favorite book of all time, I knew I was gonna love it. I was not disappointed. Is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. And so this is book one in the Regency fairy tales, and people have compared this Bridgerton meets fairies, and I definitely get that reference, but it was so much more. It made me think of Ella Enchanted, because Dora, she only has half a soul, and so she doesn't feel fear or embarrassment, and so she's in, Regency London, and they're, the season is upon them, but she doesn't feel fear or embarrassment. So, and her cousin is, you know, being presented to society, and so she doesn't want to ruin her cousin's chances for a husband. And so it made me think a little bit of Ella Enchanted, a little bit of Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley the movie. I haven't read Pride and Prejudice, but I love that movie. Again, one I've watched frequently. There's one part in here where the rain and, oh, you don't want to get a cold, so you'll stay here the night. And that made me think of the one scene in Pride and Prejudice where the mom sends, I forget the characters right now, but she sends her on horseback knowing there's going to be a storm. And so she ends up having to stay, and she gets cold and she's there. So it made me, Pride and Prejudice vibes, definitely some Bridgerton vibes. Um, and Ella Enchanted vibes as well. And I love the characters in this. I really enjoyed Dora, and then her interest, which is the Lord Sorcerer, Elias. I really really liked his characters. There was one point like I was just like, oh, it's just like this cozy, like nice read, and then we get to this one point where um he's angry because he's having trouble saving. There's this like sleeping sickness. It's like a sleeping plague that is affecting children, and so he's just worn out and he's angry and trying to figure, and he kind of takes out his anger on his best friend Albert. And so he ends up like taking out his anger and then storming off out of dinner. And so Dora goes out to talk to him, and he just kind of breaks down, and it brought tears to my eyes. And then there's another part here that I marked, when they're dancing together, and Elias, he's doesn't like the society. He thinks that, you know, they kind of have their priorities wrong and such. And so he ends up coming to this dance for Dora, and they're dancing, and she says she doesn't really know how to feel or understand what she's feeling. And she's kind of muted essentially. And so they're dancing, and he creates like the starlight and whatnot. And she goes, "I'm very content." And then she's kind of thinking about it. She says, "No," she said, "I think I am happy. What a lovely feeling. I am dreaming and I don't want to wake up." And then it kind of goes on a little bit, and then he whispers to her, "I don't want to wake up either." And it just gave me all the feels. I will say the whole part of the plot with the fairy that stole half of Dora's soul was a little weird and didn't quite make sense, and it kind of ties back to the sleeping plague that is affecting the children. That one didn't fully make sense. The logic behind like why he was doing what he was doing didn't fully make sense to me, but everything else about but it worked well for the story. I will say that. It didn't make sense to me, but it did work well for the story. But everything else about this book, I see myself frequently rereading this. Like, I definitely want more. Definitely going to be continuing the series as they come out, because I absolutely love this. I think part of it being autistic, like I could relate. Like sometimes I can't really put a name to my feelings and such either, and I'm not really sure what I'm feeling, and feeling kind of as an outcast and not really sure how to act and such. I could really relate to Dora, and even Lord Sorcerer too. He's kind of a bit of an outcast as well. So, loved everything about this. I strongly encourage you to pick this up. This is like just a warm blanket of a read for sure. So, um, absolutely amazing. This was definitely a 5 star for me, and I think I've rambled on enough about this book, so I'm gonna put it down and continue on. The last one I've read so far, which I just finished yesterday, is Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. This is the second one in the Finley Donovan series by El Casamano, and didn't enjoy this one quite as much as I did the first one. The first one, I just found it fun and quirky and kind of a unique like take on like a cozy mystery. This one, it took a little bit to get going, and that quirkiness just wasn't quite as novel, I guess, to me. But by the end of it, I was really enjoying it again. And originally, like in the beginning of the book, I thought, well, I'm probably not gonna continue on. I know there's a third one coming out, and I was like, eh. But by the end of it, and it sets you up for the third one again, and so I'm thinking, I'm probably gonna have to pick up the third one because now I need to know. So, again, just kind of fun, quirky read. If you're not familiar, Finley Donovan is a mystery writer, and in the first one, somebody overhears her talking about um, the plot for her novel and thinks she's a murder for hire, and then things ensue. And so this one kind of continues on off of that. So a lot of fun, but not probably. It was it was a good time, but it wasn't like my all-time favorite that I've read. So next, let's see, we'll talk about this one. So this is the one I'm reading with my husband, The Becoming by Nora Roberts. This is the second one in the Dragonheart Legacy. And so we've been reading this. We have just started the third portion of the book. Like I said, there's a couple days left. This might spill over into the weekend, but I'm counting it for this. I've read enough. I know, based on the first book and then this one, it's a 4-star read for me. And so, yeah, this follows Breen, and her mother's kind of pushed her down, and really kind of wrecked her self-confidence for years. And then she learns that her father has been sending her money, and she has close to $4 million. So she ends up quitting her job, going to Ireland, where she ends up following this dog and finding the land of Tala, which is actually where she's born and where her father was from. And somebody is kind of out to get her and um, wants to use her and destroy Talat and kind of use her as a gateway to the human world as well. So, but yes, the first one was a little bit slow. This one was also a little bit slow, but it's definitely picking up, and the can't wait for the third one, which comes out in the end of November. Definitely going to be picking that up and reading it right away. So really excited to finish this one up. Like I said, I'm counting it for September because even if we don't quite finish it, it'll be, you know, this weekend sometime for sure. So there's that one. And then the other one, which I haven't finished, and I'm about 65 pages in. I'm going to be reading this tomorrow. Again, it might spill over a little bit into the weekend, but not too much. So I'm going to count this one. This is The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This one is really interesting so far, and even though I haven't picked it back up yet because I was trying to get some of my other reads done, I haven't stopped thinking about it. So basically, the premise of it is the devil comes through Moscow, and it's kind of was written during Stalin's reign. So there is, I read like all the intro and the foreword and like the text notes and everything. I read all that as well before I jumped into the story, and so I'm glad I did because it definitely gives you more information that you kind of need to know. And so it was written during Stalin's reign, like he burned it at one point, um, and he didn't plan on having it. And like what ended up being published like 25 years after his death and such. But yeah, so far like quirky. So it kind of has this magical element to it. The devil has some companions, one of which is like a ginormous cat, which is like the size of a hog, but it's a cat, and he's like trying to ride a bus in one scene that I've already read. And so yeah, it's just really really interesting so far, and I can't wait to continue it. Like I said, that's gonna be um, to well, when you're watching this, it's the same day I'll be reading it, and then I'll probably spill a little bit into the weekend because it is kind of dense. You really have to think about it, but definitely will be finishing this up for sure. And then there was two books. Excuse the dogs; it's almost their dinner time. Boo boo. So there's two books I did not get to. One I am rolling over, and that is Death Note by Sugumi Oba and illustrated by Takesha Obata or Takeshi. And so this has volumes 1 and 2 because it's a black edition. So this is Death Note Black Edition 1, which contains volumes 1 and 2. And this one I purposely kind of put at the bottom of the list just because I figured it was perfect for October. And so I'm really excited to read this. This will be my first manga. But I figured, you know, I had some other reads I wanted to get to, and so this one I figured would work for October. So it's actually going to get rolled over. And then the other one I didn't get to, which I wasn't sure if I would have time, and I definitely did not, was the third in the Lunar Chronicles, which is Cress. And I've heard a lot of people say this one's their favorite, so I am excited to get to it. I'm not gonna get to it in October. I have so many like spooky type books that I want to get to that this one there's no way. If by some miracle I finish all my reads and have time, I'll definitely be picking this one up. But otherwise, I'm gonna have to hold off until November for this one. So this one I'm not planning on rolling over, but there is a chance I might get to it. A very slim chance, but that's that. So that is what I've read this month. Let me know if you've read any of these books, kind of your thoughts on them. And yeah, definitely the number one book of the month and the year is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. But there were so many good books this month, and so many weird ones that just had me going like, what is going on? So, but really, really had a great month. It was perfect birthday month for me. And yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.